11:47 p.m. 1,000 phones light up at once. Kelly Krauskopf's Twitter profile loads, spins, then collapses into a ghost. No banner, no avatar, no archive. Just the cold white page that says this account does not exist. The president of the Indiana Fever just executed herself in front of 22 million people, and nobody fired a single shot. She did it to herself. Because 8 hours earlier she had smiled into a dozen microphones and said the quiet part out loud. She said her franchise needed to be like Apple, an enduring brand, a company that matters even when the new phone is still in the box. And when the reporter asked about the rookie dropping 30-piece after 30-piece, selling out every arena from Indianapolis to Vegas, the one turning little white girls in the heartland into basketball believers for the first time in their lives, Kelly Krauskopf shrugged and called Caitlin Clark foundational. Foundational. Like concrete. Like plumbing. Like something you cover up once the pretty house is built. America heard it for exactly what it was. A rich white lady in a blazer telling the most electric guard on the planet that she's replaceable. And the country answered with fire. Moms who never care about sports created accounts to type, "She is the reason my daughter knows she belongs." Dads in Iowa farm towns quote-tweeted until their thumbs bled. Little black and brown girls who already felt invisible in those arenas saw the truth laid bare and screamed it back. If they do this to the white golden child, imagine what they've been doing to us. So Kelly did the only thing left for a villain, who finally realized the village had torches. She burned her own house down and ran into the night. And somewhere in the silence that followed, Caitlin Clark laced up her sneakers, looked straight into the camera that's followed her since she was 14, and said nothing at all. She didn't need to. The erasure spoke for her. But what nobody saw coming, what turned a PR disaster into an existential crisis of the entire league, was still waiting in the dark. Gamebridge Fieldhouse, May 2025. 41 consecutive sellouts. That's not a streak. That's a resurrection. Little white girls from Zionsville wearing braids and number 22 jerseys stand next to black grandmothers from Gary who haven't missed a Fever game since Tamika Catchings retired. Latino dads who learn basketball from their daughters explain step-back threes to their stunned wives. The concourse smells like kettle corn and possibility. The arena hums with languages that WNBA pretended didn't exist 6 months ago. And every single one of those souls is there for one reason. Caitlin Clark. She is the reason the Jumbotron now shows sponsorships from Fortune 500 companies that use to laugh at the league. She is the reason the national TV ratings beat the NHL playoffs some nights. She is the reason 8-year-old Sophia from Fort Wayne told her teacher she wants to be the president one day. But first I'm going to play point guard like Caitlin and make everybody feel seen. This is the wave. This is the miracle. This is the moment women's basketball waited 30 years to taste. And Kelly Krauskopf looked at the ocean and decided it was just a puddle she needed to manage. Watch the clip again in slow motion. Watch her lips form the words, enduring brand. Watch her wave her manicured hand like she's dismissing a barista who got the order wrong. Watch her say Caitlin's name the same way a real estate developer mentions a historic building he's about to bulldoze. Yeah, it's nice, but the parking garage is a future. She didn't just insult Caitlin Clark. She insulted every mom who finally saw her daughter on that court and felt, for the first time, like America had room for a kind of loud, unapologetic excellence. She insulted every immigrant dad who works doubles, so his little girl can afford those $180 Nikes with the swoosh that now says Caitlin Clark on the tongue. She insulted every queer kid in the heartland who found courage watching a straight white girl from Iowa refuse to shrink just because the veterans told her to. That one sentence wasn't a gaffe. It was a confession. The Fever front office looked at the most inclusive, explosive, identity-celebrating movement women's sports has ever seen and decided it was a problem to be controlled instead of a revolution to be led. And when the internet answered with righteous, glorious fury, when hashtag she is the brand trended above the NBA finals, when season ticket holders started posting videos burning their renewal packets, Kelly Krauskopf didn't apologize. She vanished. But disappearing doesn't make the truth quieter. It makes it louder. Because now the whole world is asking the question the league never wanted asked. If they're willing to throw away the one player who finally made every little girl in every forgotten corner of this country feel like the game was built for her too, what the hell have they been doing to the rest of us all these years? And trust me, the answer to that question is about to drag skeletons out of closets the WNBA swore were locked forever. Kelly Krauskopf has been in women's basketball since the league was still handing out participation ribbons and praying for 1,000 fans. She was there when the Indiana Fever played in front of folding chairs and grandmas who clapped politely. She survived the lean years, the bankruptcies, the nights when the only people in the building were the players' boyfriends and a janitor who just wanted to go home. She earned her stripes the hard way, and somewhere along that road, she confused survival with vision. She became the gatekeeper, the adult in the room, the one who knew how things really worked. And that's exactly why she was terrified of Caitlin Clark before the kid ever stepped foot in Indianapolis. Christine Brennan's book dropped the receipts last winter, and they are brutal. Internal Fever emails from Draft Night 2024. Taking Clark number 1, but we need a plan to manage expectations. She's going to bring attention we're not structured for. Another executive replied, "We can't let one player define the franchise. We have to control the narrative from day one." Control. That word appears 17 times in 30 pages. They weren't celebrating the lottery ticket that just fell in their lap. They were already scared of it. Kelly Krauskopf genuinely believed she was protecting something sacred, the idea that the WNBA is bigger than any one star. She told herself that story so many times she started to believe the league's decades of invisibility were proof of moral superiority instead of systemic failure. She looked at sold-out arenas, at little Mexican girls in Des Moines wearing Caitlin's jersey over their quinceanera dresses, at white hockey dads in Minnesota, subtly arguing about women's basketball at Thanksgiving. And she didn't see a miracle. She saw a threat, because those new fans weren't bowing at the altar of the old guard. They weren't here for the veterans who'd carried the league on their backs for poverty wages. They were here for the new queen. And queens don't ask permission. Kelly's entire identity was built on being the responsible one, the one who kept the lights on when nobody else cared. And now the lights were blinding, and she couldn't handle the glare. So she did what scared gatekeepers always do. She tried to dim the brightest bulb in the building. She scheduled Caitlin's media availabilities for 9 a.m. on practice days, when no national reporter would show. She pushed the marketing team to feature team-first campaigns instead of individual superstars. She told sponsors behind closed doors that the Fever were bigger than any one player, while privately panicking that the opposite was now true. She watched the resale market for Caitlin's jerseys hit StubHub's top 10 across all sports, and instead of celebrating, she scheduled a branding retreat titled Building an Enduring Identity Beyond Individual Talent. That retreat happened 3 weeks before the Apple interview. They served kale salads and talked about Patagonia and Apple and the New Zealand All Blacks, brands that supposedly transcend their products. They nodded solemnly about institutional excellence. Not one person in that room said the obvious. Patagonia doesn't have to worry about transcendence because nobody is buying a $400 jacket for the logo on a Tuesday night in Indiana. They're buying it because it makes them feel something. And right now, the only thing making 40,000 Hoosiers feel something is a 23-year-old from West Des Moines who shoots from the parking lot. Kelly left that retreat convinced she was a steward of something noble. She actually believed she was saving the franchise from becoming a one-woman circus. She looked at the greatest organic explosion of interest the WNBA has ever seen and decided the real problem was that it was too centered on one woman. That's not leadership. That's fear dressed up in a pantsuit. And fear makes people cruel. It makes them downplay. It makes them control. It makes them stand in front of cameras and call the player who just dragged their franchise out of relevance foundational, like she's a load-bearing wall instead of the entire goddamn cathedral. Kelly Krauskopf spent 25 years begging America to care about women's basketball. And the second America finally showed up, screaming, crying, tattooing jersey numbers on their bodies, filling arenas with every shade of this country's beautiful mosaic, she looked at the crowd and saw a problem. That's not just tone deaf. That's betrayal. And the worst part? Deep down, she knows it. That's why her account is gone. That's why her phone isn't ringing. That's why every sponsor meeting this week got mysteriously postponed. Because the villagers aren't coming with torches anymore. They're already inside the castle. And the queen they came for isn't hiding. She's warming up in the layup line, smiling like she knows something the rest of us are only beginning to understand. Something that's about to make the old guard wish they'd never tried to build a brand without her. She learned to shoot under a naked bulb in the family garage in West Des Moines while snow piled against the door like it was trying to keep her inside forever. Her dad held the flashlight. Her mom counted makes, and every swish sounded like a promise. One day the world will have to look. By 14, she was dropping 40 on varsity boys and making grown men apologize to their daughters for ever saying she throws like a girl. By 16, she had colleges sending private jets to cornfields. By 18, she turned Iowa City into Mecca. White farmers drove 6 hours through blizzards just to watch her warm up. Black churches in Chicago chartered buses. Latino families from Omaha filled the upper deck, wearing homemade shirts that said L.A. Haifa and Hawkeye Gold. Every night the arena looked like the most beautiful future America keeps promising but rarely delivers. And Caitlin never once asked them to come. She just kept shooting. She kept shooting when the talking heads called her game gimmicky. She kept shooting when veterans rolled their eyes at her logo threes and whispered that she hadn't paid dues. She kept shooting when the same league that now cashes her checks refused to put her games on national TV in college because women's basketball doesn't draw. She broke the all-time NCAA scoring record while the men's tournament got wall-to-wall coverage, and she got a Tuesday night on some streaming service nobody had the password to. But every slight, every snub, every quiet room that pretended she didn't exist just made the light brighter. Because Caitlin Clark plays like someone who was told her whole life that girls from Iowa don't get to be a main character, and she decided the story was wrong. She plays like the daughter of a firefighter who taught her that heroes run toward the fire. She plays like the big sister of two little brothers who needed proof that being soft-spoken doesn't mean being small. She plays like every immigrant kid who ever sat in the nosebleeds clutching a $12 ticket and realized for the first time that the court isn't segregated by where you were born or how you pray or who you love. It only cares that the ball goes in, and it always does. When the Fever called her name on draft night, she didn't cry for herself. She cried for every little girl in every small town who finally heard someone who sounded like them call first. She cried for the Latina point guard in Arizona, whose coach told her, be more like Becky Hammond, when what she really needed was permission to be herself. She cried for the black queer kid in Alabama, who'd been told her swagger was too much, until Caitlin stepped on campus and made too much the entire aesthetic. Caitlin Clark didn't just arrive in the WNBA. She detonated, sold out arenas in places that used to give tickets away with oil changes. Primetime slots on networks that once buried women's games at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Little black girls in braids and little white girls in ponytails and little brown girls with fresh hijabs all screaming the same name like it belongs to them too. Because it does. She turned a league that marketed itself to one demographic into the most gloriously chaotic family reunion sports has ever seen. And she did it without ever once raising her voice, without ever once demanding the spotlight. She just kept being undeniably, unapologetically herself, calm in chaos, joyful in pressure, generous in victory. And suddenly millions of kids who never felt represented anywhere saw their exact energy reflected back from the brightest stage in the world. That's not marketing. That's ministry. And the gatekeepers felt the ground shift beneath their feet. They felt the old rules crumbling. They felt the future arriving early and speaking with an Iowa accent. They felt every identity they'd spent decades telling to wait its turn suddenly standing center court with a ball in her hands and 40 million eyes saying yes, now her. And some of them smiled, and some of them panicked. Because revolutions don't send RSVPs. They just show up in number 22 jerseys and dare you to tell them they don't belong. But the thing about revolutions is they never stay polite for long, especially when the people in charge start treating the revolutionary like she's the problem. And that's exactly what happened next. They told us it was just rookie hazing. They lied, watch the tape in slow motion, and tell me this is normal. May 24th, New York Liberty, late third quarter. Natasha Cloud launches herself like a missile, shoulder first, straight into Caitlyn's chest while she's airborne. The collision is so violent the rim shakes. Caitlyn crashes to the floor, spine first, head snapping back against hardwood that has never forgiven anyone. The ref stands 3 feet away and swallows his whistle like it's made of gold. No call. Play on. Liberties celebrate like they just won the chip. That was the night the mask came all the way off. Because it wasn't one hit. It was every hit. Angel Reese forearm shivering her jaw in Chicago. Alyssa Thomas clotheslining her in Connecticut. Dejanai Carrington raking fingernails across her eye hard enough to draw blood, and then laughing about it on live TV. Aya Wilson boxing her out like she's trying to start a fight in the parking lot. Over and over and over. Night after night, city after city, Caitlyn gets hunted, and the officials act like they're watching a nature documentary. But this isn't the jungle. This is the WNBA in 2025, and the prey they're trying to break is the only reason half the country knows the league exists. Cut to Sophie Cunningham, blonde hair on fire, eyes wild with loyalty and fury. She's done whispering. She's done smiling for the cameras while her teammate gets mugged. She drops the podcast episode that detonates the entire timeline. 3 times, slow and deliberate, like she's driving nails into a coffin. People who don't understand Caitlin Clark's impact are clueless. 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 Then she says a quiet part out loud. Some of the resentment isn't coming from other teams. Some of it is coming from inside the Fever locker room. Let that breathe. Your own teammates. The ones who are supposed to have your back when the world is trying to tear you down. Some of them look at the sold-out arenas, at the little girl screaming her name, at the way the world finally orbits around Indiana, and instead of gratitude, they feel threat. They feel erased. They feel like the revolution arrived wearing the wrong face. So they leak stories. They roll eyes in practice. They let the veterans on other teams do the dirty work, while they stay quiet and hope the problem solves itself. But Sophie Cunningham is not quiet. She sees Caitlyn get elbowed in the face by Connecticut, sees blood on the jersey, sees the ref stare at the floor like he's looking for loose change. Sophie charges the perpetrator, throws her to the ground, gets ejected, gets fined. And when the reporters ask if she regrets it, she looks straight into the camera and says, "That's my teammate. I'll do it again tomorrow." That's not basketball. That's love with teeth. And somewhere in the shadows, Caitlyn picks herself up off the floor for the 100th time, wipes the blood from her lip, and smiles that calm, terrifying smile that says, "Keep coming," because every bruise you give me just proves who the real story is. The war isn't on the court anymore. It's inside the franchise. And the next shot fired isn't going to be a body check. It's going to be a nuclear truth bomb that deletes a president. Thursday night, 9:12 p.m. Eastern. Sophie Cunningham hits record on her phone. No sponsor read, no intro music, just raw, unfiltered rage wrapped in loyalty. She doesn't yell. She doesn't need to. Her voice is low, steady, the kind of calm that makes your blood freeze. People who don't understand Caitlin Clark's impact are clueless. 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 Each one lands like a gavel. She names the fouls that never get called. She names the players who smirk after they land them. She names the vets who spent years begging for attention and now act like attention is trespassing because it showed up wearing the wrong skin. She names the locker room whispers, the side eyes, the quiet hope that if they just hit her hard enough, often enough, the problem will transfer out or burn out or break. Then she says the sentence that ends careers. This league is punishing her for being exactly what they prayed for. Within 6 minutes, the clip is everywhere. TikTok stitches explode. Twitter burns. Moms are crying in Target parking lots while their daughters watch on loop in the back seat. A white grandmother in rural Ohio posts a video holding her mixed-race granddaughter and says, "This is why we drive 4 hours at every game." So she knows the world will fight for her too. It hits 30 million views before breakfast. Hashtag Protect Caitlyn trends above everything. Hashtag She is the brand trends above that. Hashtag Fire Kelly trends above the sun. And in a penthouse suite somewhere in Indianapolis, Kelly Krauskopf is watching her phone melt. She sees the replies turning into death threats for her, love letters for Caitlin. She sees season ticket holders posting their burned jerseys with captions that read, "We followed the star, not the logo." She sees sponsors quietly pulling out of meetings. She sees the Pacers ownership group texting each other in a panic. She sees her own name trending next to words like arrogance, betrayal, out of touch. And for the first time in 25 years, the woman who survived everything realizes she is no longer surviving this. So at 11:47 p.m., while the world is still screaming, she opens Twitter one last time. She doesn't post a statement. She doesn't quote tweet an apology. She doesn't even say goodbye. She just clicks the settings wheel, scrolls down, and selects deactivate account. The profile picture vanishes. The banner disappears. 20 years of carefully curated corporate history evaporates into the void. And in that exact moment, 40 million people feel it at once. This wasn't a retreat. This was surrender. This was the sound of a gatekeeper realizing the gates are gone. The castle is on fire, and the village isn't asking permission anymore. They're crowning their own queen. Caitlin Clark is in her apartment, ice on her ribs, watching the timeline move like a tidal wave. She hasn't said a public word about any of it. Not the hits, not the snub, not the Apple comment, not the deletion. She just posts a simple Instagram story. A photo of her shoes on a game bridge floor, caption, "Still here." Still here. 2 words that hit harder than any rant ever could. Because while Sophie screamed for her, while the internet raged for her, while the president deleted herself rather than face her, Caitlin just kept showing up, calm, joyful, unbreakable, letting her silence do the screaming for her. And in that silence, something shifted forever. The old guard didn't just lose the narrative. They lost the future. Because when you try to bury a revolution, sometimes the revolution doesn't die. It just gets quiet long enough for you to hear the footsteps coming. And those footsteps are wearing number 22. They're marching straight toward Paris, toward banners, toward a legacy that will be written by the very girls the league once told to wait. The deletion wasn't the end. It was a coronation. But there's one more betrayal that still stings worse than all the others. One final insult that aged like milk in the sun. And when America found out Team USA did it too, the reckoning went global. July 2024. The roster drops on a Saturday morning, and the entire country feels the slap at the same time. Caitlin Clark left off the Olympic team. Not injured, not suspended, not still developing. Just left off. While players who can't sell out a high school gym on a good day get the red, white, and blue tracksuit and the private jet to Paris. Diana Taurasi, legend, icon, untouchable, gets her 6th Olympics at 39. Brianna Stewart, Aya Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, all worthy, all locks. And then a handful of veterans whose combined 2024 highlight reels wouldn't fill a 30-second TikTok, but who checked the right boxes for the old guard committee that still believes loyalty is spelled, wait your turn. The statement they released was corporate poison. Difficult decisions, respect the process, future opportunities. Translation: we are terrified of what happens when the future shows up early and steals the stage. Because they knew if Caitlin stepped onto that Olympic floor in Paris, the world would never look at USA basketball the same way again. Little girls in Senegal and Manila, in Sao Paulo would see a calm white girl from Iowa dropping dimes and logo threes, and suddenly believe the American dream still had room for them too. The brand would explode past anything Nike or Gatorade could script. The viewing parties in Dublin pubs and Legos beer parlors would outnumber the men's games, and the old guard would finally have to share the throne. So they did what scared empires always do. They locked the gates and told the revolution she wasn't ready. Fast forward 1 year. Paris 2024 is ancient history. The veterans brought home gold, sure, but nobody outside their group chats remembers a single play. Meanwhile, back in the States, Caitlin Clark is selling out arenas those same Olympians couldn't fill with free tickets and a celebrity guest. She's dropping 30 on their heads in their own buildings while wearing the same USA basketball warm-up jacket she was never allowed to wear in the games. Every logo 3 she buries is a quiet middle finger to the committee that said she didn't belong. Every sold-out road crowd chanting her name is proof that the world already crowned her anyway. And the irony tastes like revenge served ice cold. Because right now, in summer 2025, Team USA's global dominance, their unbreakable brand, is being carried on the back of the one player they rejected. Sponsors are begging for her face on Olympic billboards for 2028. Little black and brown kids in every corner of the planet are wearing number 22 jerseys with USA across the chest. Jerseys a committee never gave her permission to represent. She became the face of American basketball without ever stepping foot in the Olympic Village. And every time Diana Taurasi watches Caitlin break another record, every time Aya Wilson sees another arena full of kids who look nothing like the old guard screaming for the new queen, they feel it. The future didn't wait. It just left them behind. The snub didn't break Caitlin Clark. It baptized her. And now the entire league is drowning in the water she walked across. But the flood is just getting started. Because when the smoke cleared from Kelly's deleted account and the Olympic ghosts finally shut up, something beautiful started rising from the ashes. Something the gatekeepers never saw coming. A reckoning so sweet it feels like justice wearing lipstick and a number 22 jersey. The morning after Kelly vanished, the silence was apocalyptic. No statement from the fever. No damage control press conference. Just an empty chair in the executive suite spinning slowly like a horror movie prop. Then the dam broke. Aaliyah Boston, the former number 1 pick who'd been quiet all season, posted a simple black and white photo of Caitlin's jersey hanging in her locker with the caption, "This is home. This is family. We protect our own." 140 characters that detonated 25 years of Team First mythology. Kelsey Mitchell followed with TikTok of her burning last year's media guide, the one that barely mentioned rookies, while Sweet Revenge played in the background. 1 million likes in 40 minutes. Even rivals started speaking. Angel Reese, who'd been painted as a villain all season, went live and said, "I play hard, but what they did to her was different. That wasn't competition. That was hate wearing a jersey. And I'm not here for it anymore." The chat flooded with crying emojis from little black girls who never thought they'd see the day. Sponsors moved faster than light. State Farm quietly pulled 7 figures from league-wide campaigns and redirected every cent into Caitlin's personal endorsements. Nike dropped surprise Still Here commercial at 3 a.m. Just grainy footage of Caitlin shooting alone in an empty gym, voiceover from little girls of every shade saying, "She stayed for us." It broke YouTube records before sunrise. Then the referees blinked. Mid-season, out of nowhere, the whistle started blowing. Every hard foul on Caitlin suddenly drew a flag. Technicals rain on veterans who've been mugging her for months. The league office issued a memo about enhanced star protection without ever saying her name. Everyone knew whose name it was. Season ticket cancellations turned into a flood in reverse. Waitlist ballooned to 30,000. Gamebridge added upper deck tarps just to create more seats. Mothers who'd never met started group chats called Caitlin's Army across state lines, organizing carpools, trading babysitting, turning road games into family reunions. And in the quiet moments, the ones the cameras miss, Caitlin started doing something new. After every home when she walks to the tunnel, finds a littlest kid in a number 22 jersey, always a shy one hiding behind mom's leg, and kneels down, signs the sneaker, whispers something we can't hear. But whatever it is makes that child stand 10 feet tall for the rest of their life. The old guard watched it all from the outside now. Kelly Krauskoff's office chair still spins. The Olympic Committee still pretends 2024 never happened. The veterans who wanted her broken now watch her lift the entire league on her back like it weighs nothing. And every night, 40,000 people, white, black, brown, queer, straight, immigrant, first generation, small town, big city, stand together and chant one name like it's a new national anthem, because they finally understand. This was never about one player against the league. This was about every kid who was ever told to wait, to shrink, to be grateful for scraps, watching one woman refuse to do any of it. And in refusing, she handed them the torch. The reckoning didn't destroy the WNBA. It saved it. It turned the league on life support into the loudest, proudest, most beautifully chaotic celebration of who we actually are when nobody's gatekeeping the dream. And it started with one calm girl from Iowa who never raised her voice. She just raised a standard. And the rest of us finally rose to meet it. Caitlin Clark never threw a tantrum, never leaked a story, never went on a podcast to cry victim, never demanded a trade, never pointed fingers, never once let the venom touch her joy. She just kept shooting logos while the world tried to erase her, kept smiling while they bruised her ribs, kept passing to teammates who wouldn't pass back, kept signing every jersey until her wrist cramped, kept kneeling down to Lil Brown in black and white, and queer kids, so they could look her in the eye and see their own future staring back. And in that quiet, relentless grace, she did something louder than any rant ever could. She exposed them all, the gatekeepers, the veterans, the executives, the referees, the committee, the ones who said, wait your turn, shrink, be grateful, don't outshine us. She exposed them by refusing to become them. And now the throne they guarded so jealously sits empty, while a girl from Iowa wears the crown they never gave her. This isn't just basketball. This is proof that when they try to bury your light, you don't go darker. You burn brighter until the whole damn world has to squint. So if you're a little girl watching this, any shade, any accent, any dream they told you was too big, hear me. Caitlin did it without screaming. You can too. Be undeniable. Be joyful. Be exactly who you are until they have no choice but to move.